This is a great day again for SBMA. Yubantech is here. I guess this is part of the empire of Ted Wang. When I didn't have to look at whether Ted Wang was involved. All I had to do was take a look at the products and compressors, air conditioning, etc. And I knew Ted Wang was behind it. And when they presented the, the wonderful audio video presentation, I was very, very pleased and elated. I immediately told Chito, who's my seatmate there, why can't we be like the Taiwanese? We were ahead of these guys. Why can't we be like the Koreans? We helped the Koreans. Why can't we be like Japan? Japanese were bombed. And I always ask that question every time I come here. I only say that only because people tend to forget the sacrifices here in SBMA. I think SBMA is one of the principal examples of what the Philippines can be if it really wants to, if it really gets its act together. SBMA, although I will cast modesty aside, has been a vision of mine since 1969 when I was in the Constitutional Convention, not too very long ago. And let me tell you that when the Americans left, we were ready. And when we did that, the first group to come in here were the Taiwanese. And I cannot forget that because I met a lot of them. We inaugurated the DMC Park again with my good friend Ted Wang, and I've always thought that if we could do it in Subic, as President Ramos used to say, where Subic goes, the Philippines goes. Unfortunately, through the years, there were, we are prone to changes. We are a democratic form of government, and because of that, every time you have a change in government, the important thing of continuity is there. It is my hope that in the future, continuity will finally prevail. I've always thought that you must have change, commitment, and continuity in everything. That's why Ted Wang's companies are very, very successful. He's involved in change all the time. There's commitment and there's continuity, and obvious dedication to the vision and the effort. I merely said earlier that why can't we be like Taiwan? Why can't we be like Japan? It's out of frustration, but out of the fact that I feel that we can do a lot more. I think that the Philippines was always born for greater things. We are an amalgamation of cultures, and let me just tell you, at times the Spanish culture, the American culture, to a certain extent the Chinese who have been here during the early days before even the Spanish arrived, has more or less intermingled with our country's culture. And in the process, I suppose we're still in a search for the important things, more than just title, which we got also from the Spanish and the Chinese. We're very fond of titles. And to me, titles are really meaningless unless you prove that the title can result into something very, very big, such as, I never called Chairman of TICO, Ted Wang, Chairman. I don't want to be called attorney. I've been a lawyer for so long, I refuse to be called attorney. Mr. Gordon is enough. Or being a senator hasn't gotten into my head, or being Secretary of Tourism, or being chairman of SBMA, or being chairman of the Red Cross. What is important is the path that you lead your people into, and the track record of engaging the people into leadership. Because once people start thinking in terms of leadership as a handout, or for that matter as a title, then we will lose. And that is what has been happening to us. The fact that we cannot enable our people to be more than what they can be, and we know that they're capable of doing that, is there. And that is why I'd like to talk about that this morning on the occasion of this week conference. After all, Ted had to drag me all the way down from Manila on a long holiday. And that's how important you are to me, Ted, and Taiwanese. I came in hardly slept last night because I wanted to be sure I'd be on time and just in the nick of time as usual. All right, and because it's important, and I thought that the message today would be making sure that title is not the important thing. That as the Hokkien, I don't know how to say it in Mandarin, bo choi kang bo tansha. You don't work, you don't eat. This is something that I've always taught our people here. That's the more essential thing. And the example here has always been our neighbors. We live today in dangerous times, but also, as the Chinese goes, there is crisis, there is opportunity. The crisis in the world today, the China-U.S. Talks on trade are stalled, and I can see a lot of Taiwanese companies realizing that they can come to the Philippines. Taiwan is also a broken promise, by the way. Please tell your president. Because when I was here, they said they would have a go south policy. Michael Su, I will remind you about that. I even carried a letter from your president to my president at the time. And they said, please tell your president that we have a go south policy. And right now, I can tell you that if we do that now and implement that, I think there is enough land between Clark and Subic, which is going to be the most vibrant community in the Philippines, with plenty of land. And if we can get our act together, if you can help us accentuate the importance of development, of being ahead of the curve, of making sure that we're able to subdivide all these lands and making sure we enhance, complement it with the infrastructure already in place. I had choices on the way here. Can you imagine? I was here in 2 hours. I could have gone to the SETEX. I did not. I chose to go to the Olongapogapan Highway, which has been there. And now you have all kinds of triplex. And on the way here, I saw a building of overhead highway. And I said, my infrastructure is growing. But when you grow infrastructure, it must be supported by investments around the area in terms of factories, in terms of business. This is the vision of our bill, which, by the way, was approved, called the corridor involving Subic Clark, and which would have changed the aspect of Central Luzon with all the infrastructure. I have refiled that bill. Although it was approved by both houses, I was kind of disappointed that some people did not agree with providing tax incentives, and they removed it and they canceled the bill and they vetoed the bill. We're refiling it, although without the tax incentives, because I think Central Luzon is still big enough. Olongapo and Subic are practically crowded already. And we have to go out to Nueva Ecija where they have plenty of land. We have to go out to Pampanga where they have plenty of land. Bataan, Zambales. These are all virgin areas that we can start another Taiwanese zone, or for that matter, a Japanese zone, which followed after Taiwan came in here. And so it's important that the Chamber of Commerce, Danny, nice to see you in a suit, but I'd like to hear you say something when we have a bill that will improve the Subic. I'm putting in a lot of investments here in terms of getting a budget here. We're putting up money for the airport, now we're putting up money for the road, we're putting up money for drainage, and yet I don't see the business community around here. I really am directing my speech to the local community here, that when we're trying to move, we must push it. You have a champion in Congress, and when you have a champion, you're wasting again the opportunity, just as we have wasted the opportunity of the Philippines in terms of infrastructure development, absent investment development. And that is why I'm glad to see my friend Mike Macarambong here, because I'm also filing a bill on the Lanao Development Authority. And and every time I file that, I talk to the local leaders there, and I guess because they're too far, you need to lobby Congress. You need to rock the boat. You need to really challenge. That is why I'm challenging you right now. I think there should be delegations here from the Philippines, led by Subic, to try and get more investments from those companies who are leaving China, instead of going to the Philippines, going to Vietnam. And there's a lot of them. And I think it's about time that we realize that the Pacific Basin is not a China lake. It is an international lake for everyone. And this is where the mistake of China comes in. China keeps thinking of the China Sea. That's only named China Sea only by reason of history being the biggest area in the Pacific, in the Southeast Asian region. It was called the China Sea, not because China owns it, but because the sea, like our highways here, like SETEX, like TIPLEX, and like all these other things, are there for development, for the creation of livelihood, for the creation of friendship and commerce and development. And if we do not indicate to the countries here involved, particularly China, that we can trade and have development with each other, then you might be looking at tension here, which will all be bad for investments. Already, people are beginning to be selfish. Look at South Korea and Japan. There are South Korean Navy in the Japanese, in the contested islands in Japan. You now have the U.S. and the U.S. Coast Guard patrolling the China Sea or the West Philippine Sea. And we're soon going to have our own vessels there. And the important thing that I'm trying to say, if I'm going to do it by analogy, and I'm glad that Ted is here, I'm going to bend your ear, Ted, is to let you know that we have to make sure that the commitment is seen, not in words alone, but in terms of investments. And when other countries see that, and when our people see that, the commitment for democracy, freedom, and free enterprise will continue. And if we don't do that, if only you leave it to guys like me, I already know I can't do it alone. I brought in the volunteers here, and, you know, we were there right away. President Ramos was way above himself, saying, wow, where Subic goes, the Philippines goes. Because at that time, we were having them one after the other. We had FedEx here. We had all kinds of investments here. And, you know, still, I don't think we have reached critical mass. I don't think we have maximized the airport. And yet they're even talking about building new airports in Central Luzon when you have an airport right here. We're bringing in the commercial shipping here, you know, the cruise lines. Everybody seems to be looking at their own navels. We cannot be looking at our own navels in terms of investments. And like Ted Wong, he has to look at the world. That's why Ted, his children are all in the business, and I'm sure he just keeps on reinvesting and reinvesting. As I've always told our people here, you gotta work, you gotta save, you gotta invest so that you can prosper. So my wish today is that you continue on with the investment. SBMA and Taiwan should make an effort to drumbeat this new investment. I was here about 3 weeks, 2-3 months ago, when they had an investment here that they opened here in the same zone. What's the name of that, Willie? The one that I went here, where they're making very, very specific tools, specific micro equipment. And I think that if we as like we used to do, make noise about it, there will be more investments. And probably some of those guys who think only of their titles will start thinking in terms of the prosperity of the people, because that's what it's all about. So today I would like to congratulate all of you here from Yubantech. I'd like to thank my friends from Taiwan for making sure that this is happening. This evening I'm also going to the airport because another company is opening up their expansion of their G5 repair hub here in Subic Bay. And I would ask my friend Ted Wang, where are all the flights from Taiwan? We already had them before. Far East Air Transport was here. Bakong Airlines was here. And we greeted them with bands. We greeted them with pleasure and with friendship. But Taiwan is just across the street, if you may say so. We should try and develop the flights between Subic, not only Subic, but also Clark. You have to leave out of Clark. I used to be able to fly out of Subic to go to Kaohsiung or to go to Taipei. So Michael Zhu, I'm also telling you that because it's important. And we cannot leave it to Michael, we cannot leave it to Ted, We have to make sure that all of us work together and make sure that we continue to expand the business here, because where business goes, development goes, and where development goes, you enable and ennoble the people, just as Taiwan has enabled and ennobled their people. Thank you all very much, and congratulations once again.